Hello and welcome to White Hare Investigations. I'm your host, Anna Rucco. The town of Pleasance. A very special shout out and thank you to J Lash for helping me with this investigation. Here we have a map of Pleasance. Now these are in no particular order. We've got a barn, house 1 with a well, town sign, a fast travel post, church, house 2, chicken coop, a burnt house, an outhouse, schoolhouse, and a graveyard. Now we'll start our investigation right here at the sign for the town of Pleasance. Now if you look up Pleasance in the dictionary, it means noun, a place laid out as a pleasure garden or promenade. Is this a possible reference that Pleasance might be the Garden of Eden? Pleasance is an abandoned settlement and point of interest in the Scarlet Meadows region of the Lemoyne Territory. The town of Pleasance was founded in August 1883 and was abandoned a month later following a brutal massacre that claimed the lives of 10 residents. By 1899, it had become a ghost town surrounded by several enduring mysteries. Pleasance Massacre. On September 17, 1883, Pleasance was the site of a grisly massacre that claimed the lives of 10 locals. The victims were discovered either shot or stabbed in a violent manner. The killer, or killers as the case may be, was never identified, deepening the mystery surrounding the ill-fated town. The motive for the murders also remains an unsolved mystery. Pleasance Plague. There is evidence that Pleasance was struck by a plague. Many buildings are boarded up and inaccessible, with signs being written on buildings, presumably as a warning not to enter in order to preserve the victim's quarantine. The easternmost house of the town also has graffiti scrawled across it. What connection this has with the apparent violent massacre, if any, is unknown. Barn. Painted on the door it says "Stay Out Plague." This has been pointed out as a possible reference to promotions for the Walking Dead series. Although the barn is locked, it has been discovered that the inside is empty, probably not filled since it was never meant to be seen. House 1. Of the 3 residents, this house is the only one that appears to have been left unharmed. Town well. The town well has had the bucket removed and has been covered with what appears to be a new door with new hardware. It was common to seal water sources during cholera outbreaks. House 2. This house has a chicken coop and seems to have had a fence around it resembling a small animal farm. This house features writing in the front much like the barn. Since it was common for people to believe that certain sins would manifest as diseases, this might explain why unclean sinners and ill with sin had been painted on the front. Chicken coop. Chopped wood is piled up and an axe is still in the chopping stump. No chickens are present around the coop. The inside is also very clean and no feed is present. Church. The doors and windows of the church are boarded up, as well as the windows in the steeple. It is interesting that the weather vane / lightning rod appears to have once been attached to the top of the steeple, and it broke off. Then it was crudely reattached to a square post on the back side of the steeple roof. This raises the question of how it became broken off in the first place, and who did the crude work of reattaching it. Graveyard. There are 10 graves belonging to 3 families and 2 separate individuals, all of which died in September of 1883. Now here is a picture of the 10 gravestones that appear in the Pleasance graveyard, in the order that they appear. Now let's take a look at how they were killed. Now here we have the graves still in the same order as they are in the graveyard, but they're being color-coded. Red is by gunshot, blue is by knife, and green was just listed as murdered on the gravestone. And here we have a slide where all the families have been sorted out, and you can tell that the Yeatsmen and the Curleys, both the head of the households, were shot, and Edmund Tobin was also shot. Pleasance Graveyard Tombstone information. Now the first 4 stones here we have are Ronald Yeatman, Laura Yeatman, Glenn Yeatman, and Jesse Yeatman. Father, mother, which were husband and wife, and then 2 sons. The next 2 is Amelia Curley and Daniel Curley. Now Daniel Curley's tomb doesn't have any information that we can use to figure out his age or anything. So the 3 Daniel Curleys that I found in history that could fit was Daniel Curley was an American novelist and short story writer. Daniel Joseph Curley was an American prelate for the Roman Catholic Church. And Daniel Curley was the second of the Invincibles to be executed and buried in Colma, I can't pronounce that, jail for his part in the assassination of Cavendish and Berkey in the Phoenix Park in Dublin. Now the next two is Asa Hassan and Jimmy Hassan, mother and son. Then you've got Curtis Baines, age 61, with a birth date, and Edmund Tobin, age 29, with a birth date. Now the last two are the only two that have their date of birth on it. Now, given the structure of the town, you've got three different houses for three different families. You've got a schoolhouse, which would have had a school teacher, and then you've got a church, which would have had a pastor. So Curtis Baines and Edmund Tobin could have been the pastor and the school teacher, with the other three families occupying the houses. Now, a fun fact about the graveyard in Pleasance. The people in Pleasance graveyard died on September 17th, 1883. Exactly 130 years later, Rockstar released GTA 5, which was released on September 17th, 2013. Could the deaths and date be a reference or an Easter egg to GTA 5? Burnt house. This house is the only building that has been burned. However, the front door is intact and on the front porch. Also note that the entire structure wasn't completely burned up, just enough to get rid of any evidence on the inside. Schoolhouse. The schoolhouse has a stove, a single cot, a few desks and chairs. There are various medicine bottles laying around. There are hints that the schoolhouse may have been used as a treatment location during the cholera plague that struck the town. And here's a picture of a few items of note inside the schoolhouse, such as the stove, the desk, some of the medicine bottles, and an interesting blue table that has 3 suns painted on it. There are 3 cholera medicine bottles located in the schoolhouse. All the round green bottles have snakes in them. The label on the cholera medicine reads, Miriam P. Horsford's Quick Neutralizing Cordal for Rheumatism and Cholera Relief. The Horsford's Company will give relief to man or beast. Miriam P. Horsford is a probably female character from Red Dead Redemption who only appears in the form of inscriptions on the shop of S.M. Neely and on the medicines he developed. These are intended to help against any kind of pain in humans and animals and can be found on shelves throughout the game. Giant snake south of town. Is this a reference to Cobb from Jungle Book, a long-lost legendary animal, or maybe a reference to the form of the devil, since the town is named Pleasance, which is a reference to a garden? Hypothesis. Now, there's a lot of different mysteries going on in this town that's layered on top of each other, and my hypothesis, is just one of many possible scenarios. But the town appears to have been the victim of possible raiders or bandits. It is highly suspect that the local Lemoyne raiders could have visited town since they operated in the area. The town folks were massacred and then buried for an unknown reason. I believe the cholera plague was fabricated and used to cover up the real reason for the killings.